Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's session. As you can see on the slides, today is the first live session for our Audit Level 1 series in Get Ahead. And today specifically, we are going to talk about Introduction to Auditing. Now, before we get started, let's just first see how we work on Teams. So I'm very excited to see all of you. We actually have over 600 delegates registered for today's webinar. So I'm very excited. I know not everybody always joins the live session, but I am still excited for the people that are attending the live one, and then of course also for those listening to the recorded sessions. So as a start, using Teams, the same as in the past, we have muted all attendees. That is really just to ensure that we don't have those surprise joiners and then they don't realize that they're not muted. So that is the first point. But secondly, we have activated the chat function, and I will show you shortly where you will find the chat function if you're not familiar with Teams. The Q&A function is switched off, but the chat function is active. If you do lose your signal or if you can't hear carefully, of course, the first thing probably is to check that your internet connection is good, but then otherwise you can always exit the webinar and just join again. That also helps from time to time. And then also know that even if you do lose signal, the recording or the session is recorded and we will make the recording available afterwards. It goes through a little bit of editing, so it will take about, let's say, about a week or so before it is then made available, and that will then be loaded on our YouTube channel. So you will be able to go and have a look at it from there. Right, so that's just in terms of the first points. Then just in terms of how you can engage with us. So please, we would like for you to be very active and involved and participate in our sessions. So first of all, we have questions. You'll see there I've put a little block around the Q&A, but just to the left of that, that's where you will find the chat function rather. So that's where you can add the chat, and you will also see that I've already said good morning there. So if you are clicking on the chat, you'll probably see my message there already. And then just to the right of the Q&A, you will see the reactions. Sorry, about three icons to the right, reactions. So you're welcome to, I don't know, do a thumbs up or whatever it is that you feel you need to. And then lastly, also, we will have the polls active during the session. Please make sure that for the polls, if you are not able to submit your answer, so for some of you that don't have licensed Teams accounts, you may find that when you want to click on submit, it's not actually going to want to submit. Don't worry about that. The poll is really just for us to then see the percentage in which direction it goes. But what we've done last week in the Audit Level 2 sessions is the guys have just simply then participated on the chat. So you are welcome to also just do that on the chat. I do have the chat open on the side so I can see as your comments are coming through, and then I can also take those into account in terms of the feedback that we are receiving. So please participate, be involved. This is supposed to be your workshop where you can participate rather than just sit and listen to me. All right, then next up, where can you find the notes or the material for today's session? We are going to talk about the e-learning very shortly, but just in terms of the notes for the session today, the slides that we are using now, as well as the exercises or the documents that you're going to need for the exercises that we will do in today's session, they are all uploaded to the Success community. Now, there are basically 2 pages, or let's start with one page. There's this one page where I almost want you to know that whatever you need, you can always go to that page, and that is the Success community. So that's also the link that we are giving you at the moment. So you can click that link or follow the link through from your QR code. Let me maybe actually also just open that actual page on the screen for you. So there you can also see now, if you are struggling to see exactly where it is, you will see there, I'm going to just highlight the first part of the website. So that is then success.casewareafrica.com. All right, so that's where you will literally land. I'm actually going to show you. Will literally land. If I go to the success community, it will, as soon as it goes, there we go. That's the success community. And of course, the stuff here at the bottom gets updated as we add extra content. So either you can go and type in there, get ahead. Let me type in get ahead, and there you will see the series for Get Ahead 2026, right? So in the search bar, or otherwise what we can also see is just this morning we also made some changes, so they just updated right at the top. Now you can see the page as well. So if you click on either of those two links, it will also take you to this same page where we were just now from the QR page. So whether you follow the QR code or whether you type in success.casewareafrica.com and then go to the Get Ahead 2026 page, just make sure that you're on 2026. 2025 is still there for the delegates that attended last year and want to maybe still go and look at some of the material there. But otherwise, you are going to be working on the 2026 page. And then you will see, well, registration is now pretty much done. You've got your track schedule, but very important then for today will be your learner resources. And if we then click on learner resources, amongst the slides section, that's where you will go to your audit level 1 session, and you can at this stage really actually download any of the two. We will talk about the difference between Audit Probe Audit Premium Plus and Audit International a little bit later on. For today, the session is pretty much the same at the start. We will have the breakouts later on, but the exercise, those things are the same. And then just below that are the learner files for the e-learning. If you want to download them from here, they are also on the e-learning, so you can also download them from the e-learning site. But if you want to download them here, you've got the audit level 1 and 2 learner files for that, with all the supporting documents that we use in the e-learning as well. All right, so that's the first thing, but that then being on Get Ahead. If I go all the way right up to the top again, you will see the second last hyperlink there from the, almost want to say from the index, is the e-learning resources. And that is the Caseware Academy or the e-learning page where you will get the e-learning modules. Now, there are, as I said, there's about 600 and I think 650 something people that have registered for audit level 1. And not all of you are registered on the e-learning. The e-learning has just about, I think, 490 something. So there's about 100 or so people, but more than that, that don't have login or that aren't registered on the audit level 1 e-learning yet. Don't worry about that. We will also next week do a quick bulk check again to see who is missing, if you want, from the e-learning, and try to upload you through the automatic process there as well. Those are mostly people that might have joined in the last week or so, so don't worry if you are missing out on that. But what you can then do is you just follow this link to the e-learning sources, e-learning course rather, sorry. Follow that link, and then there is information that will tell you how to actually self-enroll. So you can enroll yourself to all of these courses that as you need to. So there's instructions, and then there you will see Get Ahead Audit Level 1. Simply click on that and it will take you to the e-learning academy, and you can then just enroll yourself. You don't need to panic or worry if it tells you to log in. You just either register yourself there if it's your first time, or let's say maybe you're already enrolled for the Caseware working papers, then you just simply go and just enroll yourself for the other ones. If you have never been here, you can just click lost password, put in your email address, and it will then give you your link, your access as well, send you a once off password reset. So either of those sessions or options is available. I'm just going to log in quickly just to show you where the courses are. So I've landed on the audit level 1 session. What we would find is if I go to the home page, which might be where you're going to land if you get there from the start, the assurance template session is section is where we want to be in terms of the audit sessions. So there we've got Get Ahead 2026, all the courses for this year's series logged together. There is also, again, last year's one, which I would assume most of you probably wouldn't be on there, because I would rather think someone would have perhaps completed audit level 1 last year and then doing other ones this year. There's an SQM one, and then of course the Caseware and all of those other things are also there. So if we go to Get Ahead 2026 Assurance, then you will see there are 3 courses on there. So there's audit level 1, audit level 2, and then also the probe review session. That's all on there. If I go to audit level 1, so I'm obviously enrolled for all of them already. You can just enroll yourself for the ones that are relevant. What you will see there then is it is explaining to us how the course is going to work. So if I just scroll down a little bit, you'll notice there then that it explains there that there are 3 modules. Each module goes with each of the live sessions that we will have this year, and then has the pre-course work. So you can see module 1 was already the module for today's session. I will talk about whether you've done it or not, but don't worry about that at this point in time. What you will also then see is the e-learning material. So if you are using Probe Audit Premium Plus as your audit methodology, the e-learning resources, which again is the caseware file with all the resources that we use in the exercises, that's the first one, or the live webinars. Again, if you don't download the slides and the exercises from the success community, we will also upload it here for you so that you can download it in preparation for the live session. And the same then also for Audit International. So the e-learning going straight with the recorded videos, or then the live webinar resources. And as we get closer to the next sessions, the second and the third session, we'll upload the live webinar resources for you there as well. What is important for you to note, though, is that we have split the courses. Let me just quickly get here. There we go. So the first ones are all just about the resources. We have split the courses into the 2 different methodologies. So you only have to complete the section relevant, so module 1, 2, and 3, relevant to your specific course. So if you are doing Audit International methodology, you will have your 3 modules with your little quizzes, and at the end, your certificate that you can also download. Oh, now it's going there. No, I don't want to be there. Right. I can see a bit more because I'm also loaded as the learner, or rather as a teacher. So you can go all the way through down to your certificates. Probe Audit Premium Plus, if you don't use Audit International, but you use Probe Audit, then you will go through and complete the modules for Probe Audit. The difference is just that we first start off with theory, which is the same for both, because we all audit the same auditing standards. But then when we get to the product, when we get to the software, it looks a little bit different for each of these 2. So if you find that the software doesn't look right, that the video that you are watching, it looks a bit strange, just check if you are in the right module or in the right course. And then again, for Probe Audit Premium Plus, you can go all the way through to the end to get your certificate. I don't expect you to have the certificate now already. You're going to basically work through the modules as we continue through the course material. All right, so that's really the e-learning then. If you haven't yet received your enrollment from Caseware Africa by yourself or automatically, then of course you can go and self-enroll. Just as a reminder, again, you go to the success community, you go look for Get Ahead 2026, then you have your learner resources, which will have all the material that you need, and you have your e-learning courses links, which will give you the links to go and self-enroll for the e-learning. All right. While we are on the page here on the success community, you can also see that for audit level 1, where do we have audit level 1 now? There we go. It is advisable that you complete Caseware working papers e-learning as well. That's really just because most of the people preparing or completing today's session is also probably new trainees, new users to Caseware working papers. So that one will teach you about I almost want to call it the basic features of the software itself. Whereas in the audit sessions, we are going to focus on how to do the audit work. All right. So that is what you will then do. And then, of course, the e-learning, as I said, with the module for today. Right. Back to our slides. So that's the link there. And yeah, you can then either go and download the material later on, complete your e-learning in your own time. What is then the purpose for today's session? So first of all, we are going to just track your location. The theme for Get Ahead 2026, of course, is almost like a race car. I don't know if I should say Formula 1, but a race car theme. And so we are going to track where we are on this on this path of ours, on this race that we are in, and also look at some points covered from the recordings. So the assumption is that you have already completed the 2 modules, which I'll talk about just now, on the e-learning. If you haven't, don't worry, you are still going to benefit from today and probably be very curious to go and see what is covered in the online material, and then to see, looking ahead, what's to come, and do a little exercise in preparation for the next module of e-learning that you're going to do before we then meet again. And now I must just quickly look at my calendar. Session 2 for audit level 1 is on the 13th of March. So between today and the 13th of March, you've got about 3 weeks, either to then firstly catch up on the work that we will cover up to today, and then also looking ahead to the next material. All right, I don't see any questions or chats coming in at this point in time, so we should be covered for now. So let's jump in straight to the next content. All right, so where are we? What are we doing? We are busy with audit level 1, as I mentioned. Our assumption is that a person attending audit level 1 or participating in audit level 1 is a relatively inexperienced audit trainee audit team member. So we've started with just saying what is an introduction to the audit methodology, and there's a video on our e-learning that talks about auditing as a basic concept and then introduces you to your audit methodology that you are using. And then we started with performing audit fieldwork and very specifically attending the inventory count. So today is the 20th of February. I'm guessing the majority of you are going to be attending inventory counts at your clients next week, towards the end of the week and possibly even on the weekend. Why? Because a lot of our clients have February year ends, and with February year ends means that they need to count their inventory at the end of the financial year to know how many items of each of the items that they have in stock do they in fact have. Are they still sellable? Are they maybe damaged, etc.? So end of February is always a big year, not just from a tax perspective, but also from attending stock counts. So that's also why we don't have any webinars scheduled for the audit sessions for next week, Friday, because I know all of you are going to be attending stock takes. So the second video on the course is how to attend the stock take, what to do in preparation of the stock count, and then also how to tie everything up afterwards. So very important, if you have not yet attended or completed the e-learning work, I want to actually suggest that you swap the completion of those two around. First, focus on completing or watching the video on inventory count attendance. There's a lot of guidance in that video, and that will really help you with your preparation and also with the actual execution of what is expected of an auditor when attending a client's stock count. All right, and then further, this session really is to give you an opportunity for questions. And yeah, like we said, we're going to do a quick stock exercise later on. So let's start then with our first poll. As I said, I really want you to be interactive and to also participate. So I want to ask you, first of all, I've spoken a lot now about the e-learning. How far have you managed to come with completing the material up to this point? Now, I know, as I said, I know there's a lot of people who didn't have access to the e-learning material up until later today when you're going to maybe self-enroll. That is really just because of a lot of registrations that we had in the last week. So if you don't have access, please don't worry. And also, as you are completing the polls are completed anonymously. So I don't know, and I definitely don't go and see who said they haven't done anything yet or anything like that. So this really is just to see more or less where are we, how many of you had a chance to complete the material. So as we can see then there, material video 1, introduction to the methodology, video 2, stock count attendance. And I just want to ask, how far are you? And you can choose either from saying, I've completed everything that I needed to, video 1 and video 2. I'm making good progress, not done yet, but I'm getting there. And then I haven't started, but I'm getting to that point. I'm going to start soon. So let's see how far are we. I'm launching the poll to see how far have you come. Have you made any progress? All right. As I said, I can't see and I'm not going to track who said what. So you are welcome to just give us your input. If you're not able to click the submit button when you do a selection, or you're not able to do a selection, you are welcome to also just jot it down in the chat, and I will pick them up from the chat as well. Okay, we've only got about a third of you responding, so I want to encourage you. Please, will you submit, participate, tell us where you are. I see a lot of people are saying they haven't started yet, but you are getting there. I know it's a busy time of year, and I know that you also have to learn new stuff at your firm, so it's not a problem, but I would like to just see how far you have come. I see 4 people have already managed to complete the video, so thank you very much for that. I see some chats coming in. Thank you very much. Right. Another one saying, done everything I needed to. I am on track. That's fantastic. That obviously also tells me that you guys have access to your e-learning. And there's about 23 people that also say they are making good progress, so they also have started. Good. Thank you. I see you getting there. Going to do it. Right. Fabulous. Okay, I think we've got a good enough idea. The majority of you are still going to do that, haven't had a chance to. As I said, I really want to encourage you to do that. It is available there. It's not going to disappear. As I said, we still have the 2025 material. So even if you only get to watch some of that material after the series is already completed, that's fine. It will be available for you. But as I mentioned, the inventory count material, I really want to encourage you. If you have not yet attended an inventory count, or it's been a while, then I really want to encourage you to go and attend video 2 or watch video 2 and just listen to a few of those tips and tricks in terms of what is expected of us when we do attend the stock count. All right, I see some people are struggling with a login. So keep trying to say forgot password, but it's not working. All right, so just maybe I almost want to say we'll take note of that, and then I'll ask some of the admin support also to maybe just have a look and see why you are struggling. Some people have logged in. That's fantastic news. So you've already crossed the first hurdle. So that's fabulous. Right, I'm going to stop that poll, and then we can move on to the next part. So the next section section that we want to complete is to say, let's look at a few points that we are covered from the content covered so far. I see there's a question, do I leave my email on the chatbot? No, don't worry about leaving your email on the chatbot. We don't actually have a chatbot here, so I wouldn't start with that. Although we use AI a lot, we definitely don't use the AI in our Teams meetings. In fact, we prefer not to use any external of those ones. But we will pick up your email address from your registration. So you've registered and given us your email address, so we will pick it up from there. So that's perfectly fine. Thank you. If there are any others that want to maybe just put a chat in, so I'm also struggling or something like that, you can do that, and then we will pick them up from the chats and also from your registration for today's Teams meeting. Right. Right, good. Let's have a look at some of the material. So another poll for us. Yeah, I want to know from either from having attended or watched the videos, or otherwise, just in general, from what you know about auditing. So the poll options will be, or the question first, is the level of assurance or the level of comfort that is provided by an audit engagement is, and then your options are going to be reasonable assurance, 100% guarantee that no misstatement exists. We audit this thing to death. We know it's 100% right when we issue the audit report, or we only give limited assurance with the audit. So I'm going to open the poll. If you want to add or participate on the poll side, you can do that. And if you can't or want to rather use the chat, you are welcome to also use the chat to give us your response from that perspective. Right. Good. So the level of assurance provided by an audit. Which option would you choose? Which you suggest is the appropriate one? don't see a lot of movement on this poll. I do see some people are responding. Also in the chats, I see quite a number of chats. Thank you for that. Let's see. Are you wondering about it, thinking about it? When we do an audit, we give assurance. What is the level of assurance that we give? Some people say limited, some people say 100% guarantee. Reasonable assurance. Okay, see a few responses coming in, but it looks like by far we have the answer as reasonable assurance, and that is exactly right. So we never give absolute assurance, and the reason for that is just simply that the absolute assurance would mean we would need to test absolutely everything, and also everything that should have been in there, and that's really just not practical or economical. So what it works best then is rather to have either reasonable or limited assurance. And the difference between those two, of course, is that in a reasonable assurance engagement, we are giving a positive level of assurance, which is what we do in an audit. In a limited assurance engagement, we are rather saying, we don't know for sure, but we haven't seen much. We haven't seen anything that tells us there is a problem. And that is, of course, an independent review. So that is another one of our tracks that we've got for Get Ahead. So if you are curious or want to know more about an independent review, we've got that as a separate track. And we had that webinar already with information there. So if you're curious about an independent review or want to learn more about that, that track is also available. But in audit, we work with reasonable assurance. Fantastic. All right, next one. A risk raised during the planning of the audit or the actual audit fieldwork requires what? What do we need to do when we identify a risk? A discussion and audit work, a discussion, system description and audit work to address the risk, or complete panic and we go and we do endless audit for days and days and days. So let me activate that poll, or if you want to complete the chat, you can do that. So which one would you say is the option? Discussion, have a quick discussion and start auditing, or do I also need to have a system description, or do I just start auditing? No discussion, no nothing, you just go for it. I see quite a number of polls coming in, poll responses rather. Thank you. I see a chat also coming through. That's fabulous. Let us know. What do you think? What is the response that is required when we identify an audit risk? Okay, I see a few responses coming in. Right. Few people saying a discussion and audit work, but by far the majority seem to be saying that it is also a system description is required. Okay, let's go and have a look. What do the standards require? Now, this is also discussed in our introduction to audit methodology videos on the e-learning. So there we go into a little bit more detail. But what you will find here is that on the left-hand side of the slide, it says that when you identify a risk and you record it and you assess that risk, we then identify an assertion that is specifically addressed by this risk. And that assertion is then called a relevant assertion. That's a term from the auditing standards. So then we have a risk and we have a relevant assertion. We also then have a so-called SCOTABD, or the long word, a significant class of transaction, account balance, or disclosure, SCOTABD. So a SCOTABD is a significant line item, account balance, if you want, class of transaction or disclosure. So it doesn't have to be just a number in the balance sheet. It can also be disclosure. Now, significant does not mean significant risk. It does not mean material, anything like that. All significant category means is that there is a risk raised and there is a relevant assertion linked to it. That's what a category or significant class of transaction account balance and disclosure is. All right. And then the standard says when you have raised a risk, you have a relevant assertion for a significant class of transaction account balance or disclosure, one of your required responses is to have a system description. You must know how the information flows in the system, in the entity, to land up with entries in the accounting records. So we're not saying controls, we're not saying identify controls, test them for design and implementation, decide if you want to go and test controls for operating effectiveness. We're not going there. All we have to do for a risk is we have to understand how does this transaction or account balance or disclosure land up in the accounting records and ultimately the financials. So what is the flow of information? And that's where the standard thing goes into this long story about how is a transaction initiated, authorized, recorded, blah, 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 and through a manual or IT process and so forth. Right, so that's a system description. And then next up to say, we have to then go and perform field work, audit work to address this risk. So we don't have to do all the work in the work program, do every single step in there, but we have to go and respond to that risk to say, if I've identified a risk of accuracy, that the sales may not be accurately recorded because the numbers may be wrong, or we might have the wrong stock item, or whatever it is that you found the risk, we need to then go and respond to that and go and test that the right number was invoiced, the right item was invoiced, etc. All right, so that's important. All right, and then on the right-hand side is, of course, the slide to show how the items or how the information flows and what the elements are that you would include in your system description. Good, next poll then for us. So yeah, I want to know which assertion is applicable. So we now raise a risk. Which assertion would be the relevant one if I'm worried that the account contains transactions which did not happen? Those transactions are probably fake, and I'm worried that the client is recording fake transactions. So let me know, is it completeness, is it accuracy, or is it occurrence? Which one would you say? So which assertion is applicable if I'm worried that the account contains transactions which did not happen or those transactions are fake? Let's see. Thank you so much for everyone participating, whether it is on the poll or on the chats. I really appreciate that. Got a lot of occurrences coming through, a few completeness, few accuracy. Which ones are they? Okay. Good. Let's see. So again, in the webinar, in the videos, the recorded videos, we do address the definition of each of the assertions. And so the important part to the assertions are that occurrence, in this case, is what we are testing for. Now, what is occurrence? Occurrence is saying that we are testing or we're confirming, or there's a risk that the transaction does not, or we are confirming that it relates to the entity and that it did take place. So first thing is, did we actually buy the stationery? So was there stationery bought? But the second thing is also to say, is this stationery for the business? All right, so does it pertain to the business? So if we, for example, buy I don't know, let's say printer ink, for example, but this business doesn't even have a printer. What is the ink used for there? So does that ink actually pertain to the business and the business activities? Maybe not. Maybe the business bought the ink, but it actually relates to a printer that is held at home and the owner uses it for his child's homework or something like that. Okay, projects or whatever the case may be. I remember many years ago when I did my training contract, the client had a holiday house, and his holiday house had a telecom account. Back then, we still had landlines, not really cell phones anymore at that point, or not that many cell phones, or most people still had landlines and a cell phone. And he put through his holiday house telephone account through the business. To him, that made complete sense, right? Does not pertain to the business. There's an occurrence risk. Good. The next question. Which assertion is applicable if I am worried that the transactions that are recorded are recorded in the incorrect period? So am I choosing in that case valuation, occurrence, or cutoff? Let me know. Is this valuation, occurrence, or cutoff? Which assertion is applicable? I'm worried that the client is recording transactions, but in the wrong period. Ooh, I see a lot of them coming through. This one is clearly, you guys know this one. It is, in fact, yes, cutoff. So cutoff is defined as saying the transaction must be recorded in the correct period. So cutoff is actually relevant throughout the year, right? But we're not really that worried if a transaction is recorded on the 5th of February versus the 6th of February. I almost want to say, who cares? Eh? Who cares? Because it's not going to make a difference. But at financial year end, it makes a big difference. If a transaction, especially a material transaction, is recorded in the financial period when it only relates or should only be recorded in the next period, or if it's the other way around. We left it out, but it did actually relate to the financial period. And so that is, of course, cutoff, like you correctly pointed out. Well done. I couldn't catch you out on that one. Next up, when is an inventory count required in terms of the auditing standards? When is an inventory count required in terms of the auditing standards? It's always it's always a choice to attend the stock take. So I'd never have to. It's always a choice. When inventory is material, I have to attend the stock take, or only when we raise a risk on inventory that relates to existence, only then do I need to attend the stock take. So you can tell me, when is an audit required, not an audit, when am I required to attend the inventory count of the client? Always a choice, so it's never required. I can always choose whether I want to or not want to. Or when inventory is material, I have to, or only when we raise a risk for material for inventory's existence. In other words, if there is a risk but it's completeness, then I don't need to. Or is it always when it is material? So is there any requirement? Am I ever required to attend the stock take in terms of the auditing standards? See a few people are really, really on top of things. When inventory is material, See a few people that say only when we raise a risk on the existence. So absolutely, the standard says that when inventory is a material balance, we have to attend the stock take. So then we must get evidence of the existence of the inventory, but important, also evidence of the condition of the inventory. So the condition of the inventory, of course, relates to whether it needs to be written off, the valuation and allocation of inventory, so that we're not overstating inventory. Then I must go and check the stock, the inventory, see that the items actually exist and that they are not damaged and need to be written off. Yes, when we do attend the stock take, we also get evidence of completeness, but we're not going to identify, hang on, inventory should have been material and therefore we should have gone and attended the stock take. It's kind of too late then. Eh? And talking about too late then is also that if we don't know the value of our client's inventory shortly before year end and find that out, and inventory is material at year end and we didn't know that, we can't really go back in time. When we get to the client on, say, the 10th of March or the 12th of April or whenever it is that we do get to that audit and then realize, oh my goodness, actually inventory was material. I should have attended the stock take. So it's always better to attend the stock take, even if it's close to being material, if you think it might be material, or even just if it is qualitatively material. Right, don't forget about when it is material in nature or with the circumstances that it could then also be material. So we've got to attend the stock take whenever it is material, and then we must go and test the existence thereof as well as the condition of those items. Right, there I also included it in our slide. Good, a few tips and questions that we often get. First of all, can the client change the account instructions on the day of the count, or can we just include that as a management report item? So in the video, we also talk about how we need to consider the client's count instructions, because remember, your attendance at the stock take is not giving us the big evidence that all the inventory exists, because you're only doing a selection of items to test that they are there, a selection of items to test that the condition is correctly identified. The big evidence that we are getting is the control element of the client performing the count. So the fact that the client performs the count is part of their control system, and we are checking if their control is operating. Part of the control is the design, the instructions that they give the staff to say, this is what you must do at the stock take. We consider those instructions before we attend the stock take, and we decide if this control is sufficiently designed. Now we get to the client, we are happy with the instructions we saw last week, we get to the client and suddenly they've changed the instructions. What now? Well, you can't just afterwards, like 3, 4, 5 months down the line, say, oh, by the way, client, it wasn't really ideal that you changed the stock count instructions on the day. You should have rather blah, 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 done this or that. Now, that's not really going to solve the issue for us to confirm existence and the valuation and allocation of this financial year. Yeah, it can help for next year, but for this year, it's not really going to give us evidence. So what is the better way to deal with it? We can then consider those instructions that the client gives us today when we get there or the day before, and consider to what degree that still meets the requirements, and if we need to at that point give input to say, listen, maybe you should change it slightly, go back to this, or don't remove that, or whatever the case is. All right, so consider it right there and then. Secondly, what happens if the client doesn't use stickers or any other marks to count the stock? We learn that the client should be ticking off, marking something so that we know, this item's been counted. Yes, that item's been counted. Yes, that item's been counted. But what if they don't? Well, remember, they can also maybe just have a very organized way of literally going down all of the aisles and literally counting everything as they go through and making sure they've checked everything. If that is their process, then that could also be good enough. Right, again, check that they didn't miss anything. Then, is it imperative that I stay until the very end of the stock take? I almost want to now, I'm getting this image in my mind of saying very often, businesses will, after this really tough exercise of doing the stock take, they might say, guys, after the count, I know it's going to be a late count, but then we'll do a little braai, or we'll have some pizzas or something afterwards, just to, just relax and say thank you for your hard work of doing the stock count. We don't have to stay until the end of the braai. All right. In fact, I don't think they're necessarily going to invite you to that braai, but it is important that you stay until you know the numbers of the count is not going to change. I can't remember now if I give this example on the recording, but to this day, I still remember this very, very specific scenario. Well, in fact, there are two war stories I can share with you about not staying until the end of the count. The first one was for one of the audit teams that counted, it's basically steel pipes, and they counted the steel pipes at the financial year end, and everything seemed fine, everything was fine. And when you do the stock take, your forms normally don't have the stock on hand according to the accounting record. So you count everything. This is the client's count, this is our count, we agreed them, yes, happiness, and we moved along. and the team went home, and they didn't do the stock count very shortly after year end. So it was about a month or 6 weeks after the financial year end when they went to go do the final audit. And what do you do with a final audit? You go and you compare your count that you compare to the client's count, and you compare it to the accounting records. And suddenly that final inventory valuation records did not agree to what we had on our stock count, and that had agreed to the stock count of the client at the time. So let's say, for example, there should have been 50 pipes that are 3 millimeters thick and so, I don't know, 2 meters long, or whatever the pipe information was. So we expected 50, but there were only 100 or 20, or suddenly there's 30 and we were expecting 20, and it's just chaos. What happened? Well, when the client went to take their stock sheet and they compared it to their accounting records, what did they see? There was a disaster. It was a mix-up, total mix-up. Why? Because they did not organize their stock before the time. So if you're looking at their shelves or their racks or their whatever it is that they keep these pipes in, they were disorganized. So you would have pipes which are maybe different thicknesses in terms of the thickness of the steel itself, so the round part, or the diameter of the pipe was smaller or larger, but all these pipes were all in the same little box shelf thing where it was lying. So you can imagine if you were counting and you were finding 20 items, but not all 20 items were the 3 millimeter, so much diameter, 2 meter, whatever pipe. They were maybe shorter or longer, or they were maybe thicker or thinner in terms of the diameter, bigger or smaller, or the thickness of the steel was different. And so what happened at the client is that they actually went to go and resort their warehouse, organized the inventory, recounted and fixed their stock count sheets, so new stock count sheets, and compared it to the system, and they were happy. What they forgot to do was to tell the auditors and say, hey guys, we found a problem. Do you want to come check again? So what then happened is that we had to, the team members, and about 2-3 months after year end, we then had to do another count. And I promise you that count took forever. I went to go and help out there. I think we were 2 or 3 trainees then, whereas before it was just one training, quickly in and out in 2 hours. We were 2 or 3 trainees, and we spent the whole Saturday, counting lots of items to make sure that we were agreeing. And guess what? We did not leave the client that day until we had agreed not just our count to the client's count, but also to the accounting records. Now, that's the first challenge then. The second challenge is now you are sitting 3 months after year end, and you then have to do a roll back to the financial year. And so what you need to basically do is audit all of the transactions there in terms of sales, purchases, whatever it is. Thankfully, they didn't do the production as well, but imagine it's also work in progress and all the production records, to check that the inventory that we're trying to audit was at financial year end, the balance sheet date. We had to go and take what we agreed 3 months after year end all the way back to the start. So that's a nightmare. A shorter war story relates to an instance where the client they had big items, and it was this big earth-moving equipment. And the trainee left before everything was tied up, went home to go and do their documentation at home, which I could have done at the client and asked, listen, do you have a little boardroom or some desk where I can just sit and document my information so long while you are tying up your stuff, so that if there is an issue, I can just quickly go and check with you and we agree on the issue. So there, again, just ask the client, do you have somewhere where I can sit and do my documentation while you type your stuff? It's not like they're going to lock you into the premises. They are there themselves. And then once everyone is on the same page, then we can go home and go and know that everything is fine going forward. All right. And then I said, remember that the attendance is also about checking how they do the counting. It's not just about our test counts. So we need to observe the controls in action. And this means we shouldn't only rock up there when the client phones me and says, I'm complete with the count, you can now come and do the count. It's too late then. We should be there while they are counting. Right. Right, next up then, next poll is, what should we do if inventory items are measured in weight? Well, we don't carry a scale around with us, right? And you shouldn't have to. Should we believe the client to say, yes, everything's fine. We've checked it. We know that it's weighing correctly. They've got all the experience. It is their stock after all. Should we test the weighing equipment to ensure it is reliable, or should we just kind of guess, estimate how much it weighs? What is the best way to deal with this one? So let me launch that poll, and you can say, how do we treat the instances where the client's inventory has to be weighed? And, well, that has an influence on what the final stock numbers are. Right, so let's see, what are your responses? Test the weighing equipment. I see that one coming through quite a lot. That seems to be the response. Estimate. Right, sometimes it's not so difficult to necessarily estimate something, but in other cases it really is quite difficult. So yes, absolutely, the answer here is you need to know that the weighing equipment that the client uses is in fact reliable. Now, whether you and I are going to test the weighing equipment, I don't know. Do you weigh yourself every morning and then go and climb on their scale? Sometimes it measures in tons. Sometimes it might be really, really small weighing equipment that I'm going to break the scale if I get onto it. So what we need to know is that the client has, in fact, calibrated their weighing equipment. So we need to know that they've tested that it weighs correctly. So we won't necessarily have to test it ourselves, but we will ask for evidence to see that it's been done. When last did you calibrate your scales? When last did you check that this thing weighs correctly? When I wanted to do that at one of my clients a number of years ago, I can't remember what exactly it was that we wanted to weigh. But when I said, well, guys, you've got to pick this up and let's weigh it. I want to see that your scale is working correctly. It tells me it must weigh 500. I want to see that this thing does, in fact, weigh 500. What was their reason or their excuse? No, sorry, our forklift is out of gas. Oh, sorry, guys, you've got to have enough gas for me so that I can also do the testing. So I'll wait until you've got the gas. Thankfully, there was a supplier just up the road, so we could get that done. But it really is important that we don't just leave anything up to chance or to assuming, and that we actually complete it ourselves. Right, let's see what is up next. What are we looking forward to? What is ahead for us in the rest of the series? We're not done yet. We are still going to do some exercises, so we're definitely not running away. But we're basically now done with the recap of the topics. So as I said, if you are curious, or if you are attending a stock camp very soon and you haven't done one yet, please remember to go and watch that video. So on the screen now, what we've then basically completed in terms of our series to a large degree is that we've basically then covered the audit module 1, audit level 1, module 1, and today we are doing the first session of performing fieldwork. What we are going to do after today's session is we will be completing 3 modules of performing actual fieldwork. So if you have never completed the field work before, sometimes it really is quite difficult when you get to that first audit to say, okay, now I've got to start with something. What do I start? And the work program says I must do X, Y, Z. Select a sample or pick all the material items and do this and compare that. And where do you start? So those 3 modules take you through these 3 sections for cash and cash equivalents, specifically the bank accounts, operating expenses, and then employee costs. And we take you through step by step. Where do I start? What do I need to reconcile with what? How do I check the invoice? What do I look for when I have to vouch the invoice? Those kind of things. Right. So those are 3 recordings or 3 webinars that we've pre-recorded for you that really takes you through all of that step by step. And then for the probe, guys, because the audit conclusion on the probe work programs is quite extensive and there's a lot of questions, we have included an extra recording for you to just go and familiarize yourself with what each of those questions mean, what to do, how to respond to them, etc., to get to that point. So that's all the work that would be really beneficial for you to complete between basically after today and before our session on the 13th of March, because on the 13th of March, we will then go and just recap some of that again through through polls and through some questions, and then we will complete some more of those similar exercises. So we're not going to necessarily repeat what's been done in the recording, but we're going to just take that a little bit further. So it would be beneficial if you already know what's been done in the recordings. And then, of course, we will next time look at what we are going to complete in Module 3, some more fieldwork sections. But before we get to that, one of the important things that we need to do in audit fieldwork is to be able to check that the supporting documents that we are looking at, whether it's the fixed asset register or the client schedules, etc., that they do in fact represent what's in the accounting records. And for that, we need to do reconciliations. So let's just consider what is a reconciliation. When I did my training contract, a reconciliation was very big in terms of reconciling the bank account. Today, your accounting software does your bank reconciliation for you. And on top of that, even maybe more, I don't know if it's exciting or the fact just showing how things have changed in the years, is that in my days, again, we used checks. I mean, clients were writing out checks left, right, and center. I'm really feeling old now that I'm saying this, but I mean, we didn't even really have internet banking that much. Today, every single one of us complete our tax returns through e-filing and through apps on the phone and things like that. We didn't have that. So we had a lot more manual work back in the days. And so we actually tested the bank reconciliation in detail. We don't really do bank reconciliations in that much detail anymore. Mostly client systems do that themselves. And we end up, because we don't really have check payments anymore, we end up not really having that many reconciling items. Again, in the past, we used to have lots. So a reconciliation today will probably rather be related to things like trade payables, where you would look at a client supplier statement and you'll look at the records of that supplier in the supplier ledger. And you need to see what is in the client's records in the general ledger or the accounts payable ledger, and what is reflected there is owing to the supplier, and what is the supplier statement that the client got, what does that show, and if there's a difference, why, what is indicating that difference, so that we can really see if the client has in fact recorded all the purchases made, has in fact paid the supplier and not some other person, because if the supplier didn't get the payment, they won't show it in their supplier statement. Right. So essentially, a reconciliation between these two documents is showing us a link between the two accounts, the two reports, the numbers, etc., the values that we are trying to reconcile. So, for example, as I'm showing you on the slide at the moment, the supplier statement shows 1,000 Rand owing to the supplier. But when I look at the amount owing per my accounts payable ledger, it shows only 800 Rand. So did I not record the last 200 Rand? Or why is there a difference? Why does the supplier say the customer owes more than the customer's own ledger? So we need to actually then link these two, and that's why I've also got the link on the slide to say there needs to be a link from the one number to the other number, and that link, that exercise that we're going to do is what we call a reconciliation. All right, so the recon will explain the route that travels from the 1,000 Rand to the 800. For example, a payment that we've made that's not yet reflecting on the statement. Now, that happens quite easily. If I make a payment to the supplier today, Friday morning, that payment might only reflect in their account on Monday morning. So if they are sending the supplier statement this afternoon, it's not going to show the payment that I've made to them. So when I open my emails on Monday morning and I see the supplier statement showing 1,000 Rand, I need to just remember, but hang on, maybe that I can see they haven't picked up on that payment yet. Or maybe they did the payment processing this morning, and yes, by this afternoon, 4 o'clock, the money is going to be in their bank account. But at the moment, once they've actually done the processing of the bank up to that point and sent the statements, they didn't go back and see that my payment's already come through. All right, so it's not necessarily indicative of a statement, an error or a problem as such. It might just be a timing error or timing matter, and we just need to then confirm what is that indicating. So we will have to identify the differences by literally examining, comparing these two documents with each other. And we inspect the supplier statement, we match the amount what's in the accounts payable subledger to identify the differences. As I said in the past, the The bank statement reconciliations were quite a challenge, but thankfully these days software can do most of that for us. So the principle, the concept is that no matter what the recon is, we are showing how these two numbers are connected. What is the difference making them up? All right, so we are going to now go for a break. We are finishing at 11 o'clock, so we won't be taking another break before the finish of the session, but we are going to take a quick comfort break. And when we get back from the comfort break, we are going to do the reconciliation exercise. But for now, let's take a 10-minute comfort break, go stretch your legs. And if you haven't yet downloaded the material, I'll quickly put up the link again so that you can download the material. And then at 10 past 10, so in 10 minutes, we will reconvene. We will continue our exercise about the reconciliations, and then we will also have our breakaways at the end. All right, so enjoy your break, and I will speak to you again at 10 past 10. Right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are continuing our session with audit level 2 or audit level 1, session 1, and we were at the point of starting the exercise. So I hope that you've managed to download the material now and that you are ready to perform the exercise. So I'm going to very soon then replace the slide with my working papers that I'm going to be using there. And for that purpose, I'm going to switch off my camera because I'm going to be looking at that side, and then obviously you're just going to see my side. So you're not going to see me looking at you anymore. So that then off, and then we can start doing the exercise. So what I've also done is I've also downloaded the folder for myself, and I've just opened up the probe section. It doesn't matter whichever one that you've downloaded. You will see the slides for our combined session for this morning session, and then you will either see the probe slides or the Audit International. What I want us to have a look at is the investment accounts documents. So firstly, we've got investment accounts GL delegates, and then investment accounts statement extract. So from your folder, just open up those two documents. We can then work in them. Now, you may have seen that we suggest that you use two screens so that you can obviously follow what I do and then also participate and do it along with me on the second screen. If you don't have the second screen, please do not worry about that. I'm going to show you a trick now. You may have already seen that in the video, but if you have not yet watched the video, oh, there I've already done the now. Okay, let me, this is what you're going to see. So I will just talk you through that. And then I'm going to just show you how to split your screens. Let me just show you. So that's how I opened it up. What I want to see now is maybe you want to see my video as I'm working with you, as well as the delegates' working papers, or the working papers as well as what I am showing you. So what you can then do on your keyboard for your computer, you have a little button that we refer to as the Windows button. You'll know the Windows. So it's got four little blocks. If you click that Windows button and you press the arrow to the right or the left, I'm going to press it to the right, and then we're going to see how this will move the screen that was full screen to the right. And then often what happens in that case is then that'll actually have the other options on the left-hand side of what I want to show. So in this case, I might want to actually then show just the slides or the Teams section or whatever it is. On my side, I'm going to open up the statement, investing account statement, and then move that to the left so that we can then see the general ledger account on the right-hand side and the statement on the left-hand side. What you could also do in your case, maybe you've literally just got one screen and you now want to see both these documents and you want to see me, maybe, then you can actually also then, once you've moved it up or down, you can actually, or left or right, you can actually then also choose to split your screen in 4 parts if you want to then also see other parts. So I'm going to use just the split to the left and the right. You can also add the up and down if you need to. Right, now let me just redo this again. Right, so there we are seeing the differences. Good, or the two different documents on my screen. So if you want to now also continue and do it with me, then you might need to maybe move the Teams to the bottom, or just see how you can arrange those. Otherwise, if you want to do it afterwards with the recording or try it yourself, then obviously then you only need to watch and see what I'm doing on this section. Right, so on my left-hand side of my screen, I've got the extract from the investment account of company A that comes from the investment company. And what we can see there is that they are showing a cumulative capital balance of 91,000, the opening balance on the left-hand side being 31 January 2023. In wrap-up, this case study that we are working with in audit level 1, wrap-up's financial year end is 30 April 2023. So just so that you know, don't expect a February year end. We've got 30 April. Right. On the right-hand side, we've got the general ledger account, and that, of course, goes from the end of May last year and then all the way through to 30 April. What we've noticed then is If I look at the 31st of January and the opening balance from the client's statement there, we have the same value. So the right-hand side has got the yellow highlighted 91,821 Rand and 16 cents, which is the same as the opening balance. So what we basically know by that then is that all the transactions in the general ledger up to that point reconciles to whatever was in the previous statement from the investment bank. So what we then have left is basically these 3 transactions in the general ledger and, well, a number more transactions in the investment account. So what I've then done is I've actually taken the 3 accounts and, the 3 lines in the general ledger. And I went to go see, okay, there's a February, what is this thing saying? It's in debit order. Okay, so that then, in other words, is basically money saved to the investment account. So I would expect that money to increase the statement. So on the left-hand side in the investment account, again, on the 28th of February, so that matches. There is a 10,000 Rand that's come in there. So you can either then, if you want, highlight it. In terms of reconciliation, it's often easier to kind of scratch them out and basically cancel them out. So I'm going to use the strike through text in the investment account. And I've done a similar thing on the right-hand side in the general ledger. Last year in this webinar, someone taught me the quick trick of how to do a strike through, and that was control number 5. So there the strike through disappears and appears as I continue to type control and 5. Before I learned that, I'd actually created my own little part for myself in my ribbon, and there, because I like to have merged cells that doesn't center the text, and because I like strike through, I just use that one. But of course, it's quicker if I can use my shortcuts. So I've marked off then each of these 10,000s at the end of March. I have then reconciled those deposits end of March and end of April. So what are we left with? We are left with the interest earned. And are they recorded in the general ledger? No, we don't see the interest earned recorded in the investment account. So that is why we then have a balance. And on the bottom here, I've actually then done the reconciliation for us so that we can easily see them. So the closing balance, according to the general ledger, that's the 21,000 that we've got there. Then the interest earned at the end of February, I guess we can also say on 31 March 2023 and on 30 April 2023. Those are the 3 interests that were recorded in the investment account. All right. Does the account now reconcile? Let me just highlight these ones. So you can either then strike them through as you are recording them in your calculation. Yes, we see the sum of those items is now the same as the balance that I've got from the actual statement 123355. So the difference is 0. And now I know that I have created the link between these 2 documents. Right, what do I do though? So the client has not processed these 3 interest elements, but the statement from the investment bank is correct. So I would now need to go and record either an adjustment to the client's records in my Caseware file, or I would need to record an uncorrected adjustment to the accounting records. Of course, ideally, we want the client to fix this. So this would then be something that the client has basically cut off the recording of interest, well, never mind early, probably just incompletely, the interest recorded is just incomplete. And so therefore we have this problem, this error, this mistake. All right. Definitely not material, but that is just the very, very basic element of how we are going to do the reconciliation. I'm quickly going to do the reconciliation for the other exercise as well, because I want us to just also then have some time for the breakaway. So in your folder again, you have the PPE, the extract from the client's fixed asset registers. I didn't give you all the detail, but there are some information, as well as the extract from the client's general ledger account for property, plant, and equipment. So I'll open up those 2 Excel documents. And then we can again split our screens and see what we can see from there. All right, so just enable editing so we can do some stuff there. This is, of course, locked or in protected view because we downloaded it from the internet. So here I've got the extract from the fixed asset register. And in this case, there I've got the PPE extract. So that's the one I want to see. The other Excels are, of course, the ones that we just used for the investment account. Right. Hang on. Let me move it to the left again. Right. Just make it slightly smaller, but still fit in. And on the right-hand side, we can see it as well. All right. So here I've got on the right-hand side is the fixed asset register. The cost that we got is, or the values from the fixed asset register is plant and machinery, etc. The cost. The additions here is what we are going to see from the accounting records or from the general ledger, and then we've got the GL value. So here we've actually already got the reconciliation done. Now what the person has done is they've literally gone and taken the opening balance from plant and machinery, and they've compared the value of 5,734,986,820 from the GL. So that literally comes from the closing balances. And then the fixed asset register, those are the ones that came straight from the fixed asset register. And we then had this difference of 1.3 million. And again, as we went to go and draw lines through each of the items, so this is the general ledger where we would have drawn the lines. And for the fixed asset register, you can also technically have a balance making up, or the records making up the balance of all of the machines. And I would have done the strike through for each of these items as I had agreed them. And then I sat with a difference, the balance being 1.3 million for that Hudson Sharp bag machine. Clearly that was a machine bought. The funny thing is that it was done through a general journal. So I guess that might be because, I don't know, maybe we did it through a financing or something, but it obviously didn't go through the normal payments in the cash book. Okay, so that is then an addition that the client recorded in their general ledger, but they forgot to fix or update their fixed asset register. So we will just simply ask them to update their fixed asset register as part of our details at the end, or maybe they'll update it and then we can reconcile it completely and get a new fixed asset register and just check that the recon then works. Good. For the other items, thankfully they agreed. So again, the property, plant and machinery, the motor vehicles there, the balance 923 agreed. Oh, sorry, that's the accumulated depreciation. The vehicles, motor vehicles, 100 or 1.274 million and so forth. As you scroll on the left-hand side through the GL office equipment, 125,000, and furniture and fittings, the cost 172,000. So no problem on the cost side. For the accumulated depreciation, we there had a different problem. So here the balances from the fixed asset register was there, and then we had the GLs. And what we found, if I look at the fixed asset register, the furniture and fittings GL account. So let me just scroll to that again. I think I have, where is it now? Right here at the bottom. So there, what you will find is that actually, if I just sum the total depreciation from the general ledger for this year, the total is like literally 4,000 Rand. That's exactly the difference. So what we will see is, again, the client recorded the depreciation this year, but obviously they must have not updated it in the depreciation for the fixed asset register. So again, they forgot to go and complete the fixed asset register. I think I'm starting to see a trend here. Someone forgot to give us the final fixed asset register. The same would happen with motor vehicles as well. If we go and have a look at the motor vehicles, the depreciation does not agree. So again, hang on, what do we see here? It's not like they didn't record all of it. They probably just didn't record the last one for the year, right? And we can also confirm that by seeing basically at the end of March, the total balance was 918,000. And then if we add the last month's depreciation, that will bring us to the 923,000. So we just need one more month's in depreciation for motor vehicles, and then we've reconciled. So once the clients updated the fixed asset register, or we have just agreed these and we now know that the fixed asset register, we can work with it, then we have reconciled it and we are ready to go. So the one thing that I want to just quickly mention in this regard is that you might have heard the term of IPE, or information prepared by the entity, by the client. And this fixed asset register is essentially a document that the client prepares. And the standard says that when we are going to use information prepared by the entity as audit evidence, then we need to check the completeness and the accuracy thereof. We need to check the reliability of the information. Now, part of how we do that is to do the reconciliation, to know that when I want to go look at the detail of my fixed asset register, then I can rely on that as being I always like to think of it as almost like a user-friendly version of what is in the general ledger, because I can just more easily see what happened there than going through GL accounts. All right, so we have now checked and tested the information prepared by the entity. We know that it reconciles to what is in the general ledger. All right. Good, so that was a quick exercise. If you participated, that's great. If you haven't participated, it is in your folder and you can then go and do that afterwards. Right, looking ahead, thinking about what's coming up as you work through the other recordings in preparation for our next session on the 13th of March. Remember to apply the things that you've learned in the first two recordings. We discussed tick marks. We discussed legends on your working papers, how to reference between the working papers. So you're going to be preparing working papers in the other sections and working through them. So remember to also use those same principles. Don't leave them behind now in Module 1. All of these modules are building on top of each other. So make sure that you continue to use those. And then just in terms of the methodologies, the recap there, first of all, we are all auditing to the same auditing standards. So we are using the international standards on auditing. Doesn't matter if you are in South Africa or in another country in Africa or somewhere else. If you are maybe from a country that has their own auditing standards, I can almost bet you that your country has started the standards using the international standards, and they maybe added a few additional requirements or changed some of the requirements. But the basis is your standards, your auditing standards. And then the firm decides how to implement those auditing standards. And that then becomes your audit methodology. So in terms of audit methodologies that we will be addressing on the session, first of all, we've got Audit International. So that's the first audit methodology that we are addressing. And the second one is Probe Audit Premium Plus, or Probe Audit, very often also referred to. And you'll notice those two icons. On the left-hand side, Audit International. On the right-hand side, Probe Audit Premium Plus. Right, now what's the difference? How do I know whether my firm is using Probe Audit Premium Plus or Audit International? What's the difference? So Probe Audit Premium Plus is firstly, both of these run on Caseware. So that's also why we said that it is important that you also understand how to use Caseware working papers. So Probe Audit Premium Plus has a built-in methodology. So the firm can't actually change that much. You're using the methodology that's built into Probe Audit Premium Plus. It has the latest auditing standards. So for example, that's not part of our topics, but just so you know, 2-3 years ago, we actually launched with an additional module or additional documents that actually addresses ISO 600, auditing group or financial consolidated or group financial statements. So we have all the latest auditing standards in there, and it does also have some element of localization. So in South Africa especially, there's a lot of content for the Companies Act and for matters related to the RBA, which is the South African audit regulator. There are also localization elements for other countries. For example, I know Namibia's got some items, Nigeria's got some items, Kenya's got some items. So there are a few other countries that also have localization in there. And then I think one of the big benefits of Probe Audit Premium Plus is that we have specific audit procedures for the recognition elements or criteria of IFRS and IFRS for SME accounting standards and the measurement. So when you have audit steps, then you will see that those audit steps are specified for the detail requirements in terms of recognition and measurement. So the cost at which you must recognize an item, or the value at which it must be recorded at subsequent measurement at year end, those kind of elements. All right, the screenshot that I'm giving you here also shows you, for example, that line that's highlighted, 10.20, that's the planning document, starts in the tens. So that's one item in which we can identify Probe Audit Premium Plus. And then if we move on to Audit International, there we will see a few other items. So Audit International is an international methodology, and a lot of African firms uses it, and then network firms also uses it because they can actually, well, Audit International allows for you to basically modify it to apply your own audit methodology. So the firm can embed their own methodology. So in other words, change a few elements to make it more your own. All right, so it is based on the IFAC guide, and again, auditing standards. So the screenshot here, what you can see is there, the planning documents are in the hundreds. Remember with Probe Audit Premium Plus, I said 10, 20, 10, 30, things like that. Now we have 405, 408, 415, so in the hundreds. That's Audit International. Another way in which you can identify is when you go to your templates that's installed on your computer. The template indicator also then has on the left-hand side there, you can see in the red box, Audit International. So the financial statements is the IFRS or the SME or the MSCOA or whichever template you have. And in IFRS and SME, you also have the probe in there. But then if you're using the Audit International, you will integrate, and Samuel's going to tell us more about that, you will integrate to the Audit International methodology with that file. So that's another way where we can know that. And then the last image also just to show us is you also have a so-called digital dashboard. So if you look at the bottom left of this screen, you will notice that we have a dashboard, sorry, a document manager. That's for both Audit and Audit International and Probe Audit. And then you've got the dashboard or the digital dashboard that indicates that you are using Audit International. Right, so that hopefully helping you to determine which methodology is our firm using and which one is it that I'm going to be working with, seeing that you might have already worked with a few points. That now brings us to our breakout session. And so knowing now which methodology your firm uses, you are now equipped to know which session you are going to join in our breakout session. So I'm going to introduce Samu. Samu is one of our audit specialists or one of our consultants that really knows Audit International very, very, very well. So Samu is going to take you through a breakout session now, applying some of these things that we talked about today, but in your methodology, Audit International. You can see Samu's come on board online now, so you can see what she looks like, and she's going to talk to you. And then I will go with you into the Probe Audit Premium Plus breakout room to go and talk a little bit about Probe Audit Premium Plus. So if you go to where your points are about the chat and all of those options in Teams, go and have a look for the meeting rooms. The rooms are active now, and then you pick the right room that you need to go and attend or participate in the rest of the session. Right, so go and join Audit International with Samu and then go learn more there. And then I will go and join Probe Audit and see you on that side to go and talk more about Probe Audit Premium Plus.